Hello everyone. More than 50% people get this question wrong, which makes this one of the most difficult questions in official guide to GMAT. Welcome to another session with GMAT by examples. I am confident that you are going to get a lot of value from this video. So if you find this video helpful, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. In this session, we are going to talk about why people get this wrong, what is the approach to solve this question. And look, once you see the solution to this problem, you're going to wonder why people get this wrong. But while I'm solving the question, I will point out specific places where people get this question wrong. And what is important for you to understand is to avoid those mistakes, avoid those assumptions. Otherwise, when you are in the exam and running against the time, you will be prone to making the exact same mistakes. Okay, so let's jump into it. I will start with statement number one because that's where most people falter, and I'm going to solve statement number one in two different ways. Both of them will yield the same kind of equation, and then we will go from there. So let's get started. The first approach to solve this question is drawing this thing out, extending this line out here and extending this line out here. And since this is given to be 15 foot, this is also given to be 15 foot. We know that if you extend these lines out there, you will have 15 by 15 as well, right? Which means this whole thing is a square. Now you also know that since this is 15 and this is given to be k, this side would be 15 minus k, and since this is 15, this whole thing is 15 and this is k, this side would be 15 minus k, which means this is also a square. And what that means is, since the statement 1 gives the area of the shape, which is a garden in this case, then you can find it by area of the big square minus area of the small square. And let me quickly write that down. That is 15 square minus 15 minus k square, and I'm going to quickly apply a square minus b square to simplify this, right? So that gives me 15 minus 15 plus k multiplied by 15 plus 15 minus k equals 189. This would give you k into 30 minus k equals 189. And when you solve it further, you will end up getting k square minus 30k plus 189 equals 0. This is the first point where people get it wrong, because hey, it's a quadratic equation, so two values of k are possible. Since two k values of k are possible and the question asks what is k, they are looking for a unique value, it will not be sufficient and they mark it as insufficient, which is where they get it wrong. So let's mark this spot. The first mistake is that they assume that there are two values of k. And why is that assumption wrong? One of the values of k could be positive, the other one be negative, right? So which means that since k cannot be negative, there is only one value of k possible, or there could be other scenarios, and we will look at that. So that is why getting to this step does not get you the answer. This is one of those cases in GMAT where you actually have to keep going further. Okay, before we go any further, we are going to look at the other method, and what you will see is the other method also leads to the same equation. So it is not any better, but it will lead to the same kind of assumptions and same kind of mistakes. Okay, so in this case, I am going to extend this line from here. This is going to be 15, right? The area of this rectangle would be 15k, and the area of this figure right here, this side would be 15 minus k, this side would be k, this side would be 15 minus k, and this side would be k. So this would be 15 minus k into k equal to 189, right? Because the area of this plus this is the area of the overall figure, which also gives you k square minus 30k plus 189 equals 0. So as you can see, both of these give you the same equation to calculate k, which means that for both of the approaches you would have made the same mistake, which is assuming that k is going to have two values without realizing that one of the values of k could be negative, or it could be some other case, in which case you may get a unique solution. So what is obvious is that we have to move further. The question now is how to move further, right? And that is also a little bit of a detriment, and you are forced because you are always running against the time. So let's see how we will solve these kind of problems. The easiest way to solve these problems is to realize that there are going to be two solutions for k. right? We already talked about that. The multiplication of those two solutions is going to be 189, and the addition of those two solutions is going to be 30. So if I factorize 189, I get 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 7, right? And I can very quickly see that 3 multiplied by 7 is 21 and 3 multiplied by 3 is 9. When I add these up, I get 30, and this comes with a little bit of practice. Don't get discouraged if you're not able to do it this fast. So which means that this equation gets translated to k square minus 9k minus 21k plus 189 equals 0, which will actually give you equals 0, which gives you k equal to 9, k equal to 21. You all are probably looking at me and saying, you see, it is two values. So why did we go all the way here? We get two positive values of k. There was just no point going further because two positive values of k are possible, and that is the mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is not looking very deeply into these two values and just say, oh, these are two values, both of these values are possible, so statement 1 is insufficient. That will again be a mistake, and here is the reason why. First, let me write down the second mistake. Recall that in data sufficiency GMAT questions, when I am looking for a value, I must be able to find a unique value. We are in a little bit of a cross junction where we are seeing that there are two values, and still somebody like me is saying, hey, wait, there could still be a unique value possible. And what is the reason behind that? And this is the next level of attention to detail that you really need to have during your exam. What we have found is k equal to 9 or k equal to 21 as two possibilities. But let's look at the diagram, right? In the diagram, especially if you see this diagram, you see that k is a portion of 15, which means the maximum possible value of k is 15. K cannot go beyond 15 because then everything will turn to negative. So in these two values, k equal to 21 is really not possible because k has to be less than 15. It could be all the way to 15, which would make everything as 0, but it can certainly not be more than 15. So the only realistic value for this particular diagram, k equal to 9. Since there is only one realistic value, even though it feels like there are two possible values of k, all we know is that there are two possible solutions for this k, but only one possible value of k, and that is k equal to 9. Hence, statement 1 is sufficient to answer the question because you have only one value. And this is where most of the people get it wrong. Let's quickly review what happened in statement number 1. One, we solved it with the area formula in two different methods. In both of those methods, we got a quadratic equation for k, and we said that we are not going to make a mistake of assuming because it's a quadratic equation, there could be two values of k possible, so k is not unique. Number 2, we got to two values of k and both were positive, and we decided to avoid the second mistake by paying more attention to this detail and realizing that realistically in this diagram only one of the values of k is possible, which is k equal to 9. We discarded the other value of k. So the real takeaway is when you see a quadratic equation, don't just assume two possible values and hence not unique. If you can, go all the way to calculating those two values. When you calculate those two values, that's not the end. Compare those values to any of the other constraints given in the problem and then figure out if you get a unique answer or not. All right. Hopefully you found that helpful. However, if there are any lingering questions, please leave a comment. So now let's go to statement number 2. All right. So let's quickly understand the statement number 2. The main reason people get this particular statement wrong is because of a calculation mistake. What is the perimeter of any shape? You just add the boundaries together and you get the perimeter. You're already given most of the boundaries except these two boundaries, so let's look at that. We know that this is going to be 15. If you recall, we drew these edges, right? So if this is going to be 15 and this is k, that means this side would be 15 minus k. Similarly, this side is 15 and this side is k, then this side would be 15 minus k as well. So when you try to find the perimeter, just make sure you get the expression exactly correct. If you don't get it right, then you will end up making a mistake. And it is really a calculation mistake or attention to detail mistake not an analysis mistake, right? We are going to start here and then we are going to go clockwise. So k plus 15 minus k, and I'm going to check mark each of those so that I don't miss anything. 15 minus k, and again plus this k plus 15 plus 15. Let me double check if I missed any of them. So there is a check here, check mark here. All of them have been covered, and this is given to be 60. All right. So based on this, I know that 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 is 60, plus k minus k cancels off, k minus k cancels off, and I have only 0. So what I really get here is 60 equals 60, but no real value of k. Since I have no real value of k, so since I don't have k in the equation at all, there is no way I can find k. However, if you had missed any of these terms which had k in it, then your k will not cancel off, and you will actually get the k in equation and think that you are going to get a unique value. So the real thing is, if you get everything right, you're not going to get k as part of the equation, which means having the perimeter does not really give you any possible value of k. So this is insufficient to answer the question. So the answer to this question is only statement A is sufficient to answer the question. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new. Also hope that I have pointed out the important mistakes that you need to avoid to get this kind of questions right. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you found it helpful.